Great. And we also, everybody's wearing lots of hats. We have 3 advisory council members here this morning, which is great too. And before we do introductions, I just want to, I don't know if I'm apologizing or acknowledging that it has been a really busy chapter at the downtown center for our communities in particular, because we're dealing with starting with the Main Streets, the Maine Office of Tourism grant. We have a number of you on here that are working on the entrepreneur ecosystem, congressionally directed spending request. Then we also have annual accreditation visits going on in our Main Streets. And we had Planetara, who's one of our lead consultants in the Maine Office of Tourism, doing site visits. And this is all in like the last 4 weeks. Internally, Ann Schlitt and I are working on a National Park Service grant, trying to load it in the next like 5 days. And we also have Sylvie out. So there is a lot going on, and it's just giving me pause, and I'm just wanted to acknowledge that I know it's really hard, and you guys have been stepping up. Planetara has really had great things to say about all your communities that they were able to visit. And anyway, I just needed to acknowledge that, because I said to Anne and to Perry, I was like, we cannot do annual accreditations 3 a week. Like, we just can't handle it. And I think you guys can't handle it, or we need to space it out or something. I don't know. So that's how I'm feeling. And I just want to apologize and also give gratitude to all of the incredibly hard work you guys are stepping up and doing. And then, individually, you all have your things going on in your own communities as well. So, Ellsworth's on their way to becoming a Main Street. We have, the huge event happening in Holton, who's on the path of totality. So anyway, Terry Ann, Carrie, Tara, like, who else am I missing that are advisory council members? I think that's it. But thank you for coming this morning, wearing all your hats. And quick rounds of introductions for Martha. And also, I want to just double check one thing. Maine Association of Nonprofits webinar on governance coming up in April. Jane's Walk coming up in May. And a wonderful webinar without Maine on creating open and welcoming communities, which is going to be really, really fun, and taking their work and putting a community lens on it. So, which they do all the time, but we're definitely excited to have them in our webinar. So get your boards, your committees to attend things. You should have gotten an email with signups last week. Cara, would you just say good morning and where you're from?
Morning, I'm Ellsworth.
Thanks. Nancy.
It's a Couch, town of Fulton.
Terry Ann.
Mary Ann, DECD.
Super. Dave.
Dave up here in Rockland. Good to see you again, Martha.
Carrie.
Morning, I'm Kerry Tyson, in Portland, downtown.
And Abby, good morning.
Hi, Abby Leibowitz, Heart of Biddeford.
And I'll pass you, Martha. Karen.
Karen Knox in Hollowell, and I apologize ahead of time. I'm going to leave early. I have a doctor's appointment in Waterville at 9:45, so I'll be dropping off.
Well, thanks for joining us for a bit.
Yeah.
Tara.
Tara Kelly, Executive Director of Maine Preservation. I live in Bath.
Tamara.
Hi, I'm Tamara Whitmore, Gardner, Main Street.
Ross.
Ross Cunningham, Economic Development in Lisbon.
And Ari.
Ari Emmerker with Discover Downtown Westbrook.
Oh, I got to meet in person for the first time. I'd always had a Zoom relationship with Ari,
Right.
but we met at Westbrook's assessment. Denise.
The Economic Development Director for Calais in Baileyville.
Thanks for coming. Delilah.
Hey, this is Delilah in Biddeford, and I just finished drop off
from my kid at school. So I'll be listening until I get up to my apartment.
Super. Thanks, Delilah. And Anne, thanks for saying good morning.
Hey, yep, Anne from MDF, standing in for Sylvie.
We now assign emails and squared. Okay. Did I miss Martha? We're going to turn it over to you, I believe. I'm thinking I didn't miss anybody, but let me know. Use the chat, people. I'm glad you're all here. Martha, take it away.
Thanks, Anne. And I'm also hoping that I'll be able to share screen to share a couple slides if you can give me that ability. Hi, everybody. Martha Bentley. And I also wear a few different hats, all hats of my own creation, I guess I should say. But I'm talking with you today about Proprietor, which is a startup that I founded a little over a year ago. And can I just have sort of a show of hands of who was there I presented in September, and I realized that I sort of had made the assumption that people were there as I was working on today's. So it's just helpful to sort of know if you can kind of give me a show of hands of who was at the September leadership retreat, just so I get a sense of who's hearing this for the first time. Okay, so probably quite a few people that have not heard this. So it's going to be a little bit like you have just picked up a book and you're going to open to the middle chapter. So apologies ahead of time.
And I want to say, Martha, I would say that's probably my fault for not connecting those same dots of when you were with us before and who was with us. But I think everyone will be quick learners in the middle of the book, but good analogy.
Well, thank you. And another, so just a very quick show of hands. I would like to have a sense of who here has ever owned or started their own business. Terrific. And who here has done, and I'm going to do a little bit of a difference between a startup and a small business. Who has done a startup that they were looking to scale big? Nice. And the reason that I make that sort of differentiation is what I would say is what I'm sort of updating on right now is that where I am is I started as a startup, and I will say I have scaled back at the moment to being a small business. So that's sort of my caveat there. So I'm going to share my screen and just talk a little bit about Proprietor and how we might work together. Okay, can everybody see that? Terrific. So as I said today, I have thought about this as sort of an update from the September meeting, and I've entitled this sort of "The Only Constant is Change," because that has been my experience with this endeavor. So Proprietor, I started a little bit about my background. I have worked in small businesses and startups in Maine since 2002. I worked for many years with Maine Technology Institute, managing their sort of innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystem programs. And then I moved to the ECD, to the state of Maine in 2019, and was the small business development manager there during the pandemic. And so a lot of my experience there is what sort of shaped my passion around working on this particular effort. And what Proprietor is, it's a paid membership community, and it's a community for very small business buyers and sellers that have shared values at all stages of their journey. And really what I've learned in working with a lot of different small businesses over the years is that the very small business. Some people call them micro business. You all might think of them as Main Street businesses, but very often they are neglected, or there's a bit of a gap in the sort of professional service ecosystem for those very small businesses, and specifically around business transitions. So very small business owners who are looking to either retire or move out of their business, or people who might want to be moving into a small business ownership opportunity. So what we've learned with this is that sort of what we've tried to build is a trusted community, and that members can find peer connection with each other, the tools and the supports that they need to successfully acquire or transfer their small business. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about sort of where we are with this. And I know that you are all seeing this in real time in your communities, but we're in that shift. Some people have been talking about it as the silver tsunami. Some people talk about it as the great retirement, but the reality is that small business owners, over 60% of small business owners are over the age of 55 and are looking to retire fairly soon. And that this really, this trend has accelerated post-pandemic because people have, sort of burned out and have been working really hard, and they're sort of ready to go. The really sad thing about this is over 50% of these will close instead of transferring to new owners. And this is a real loss for our communities. The other side of it is the opportunity, and that one of the things that really came out of the pandemic is people recognizing the ability and the desire to sort of choose their own destiny. And so entrepreneurship has been having a moment over the last 3 to 4 years, with people sort of recognizing that they would like the independence and flexibility of working for themselves. Interestingly, also, there is a small trend of baby boomers who are exiting their W-2 work, so sort of retiring there, but recognizing and their desire to own a small business in there as sort of their second stage of their careers. And so that's also an opportunity there. So I want to talk a little bit about, this is sort of the vision of the community that we started with, and I sort of presented and talked with everyone about in September. And really what we saw is really building an ecosystem for people sort of all along their journey. So helping people who were potential buyers and sellers to get ready. We have a matching database, so sort of helping people get ready for that, go into that database for us to help connect potential buyers and sellers, and then recognizing the need for supports after that transition for both buyers and sellers. So for new business owners, I had a business owner that said being able to buy a business was like winning the lottery, but then she sort of walked into the business that next day and was like, oh, wait, now I need to understand payroll and the cost of goods and marketing and all of those sorts of things. So helping those new owners, but also recognizing the value and the challenges when you have owned a business and that has been your identity, that when you do retire or sell, that there's a value in supporting people in that piece within a community. So I'm sharing this because this was really the original vision and the thing that got us really excited. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what the current offering is now. So that was September when I presented that here. We went live in November, accepting payment for membership for our founding 100, and went pretty soft on our marketing and outreach, tried a few things. And then in January, my co-founder decided she needed to step back. So proprietor came back to being just me. And so after doing a lot of soul searching and spending about a month transferring all of the work that she had been doing, which was a lot of sort of the foundational operational work, I decided that what I needed to do is really scale back to what I knew that I personally could deliver. And so this is the current offering right now, what I am offering to people who become members. And what I did also, because, you know, sort of trust and honesty is one of our key values. I went back to all the members and said, thank you very much for signing up. Things are changed a little bit different. This is what I can offer you for your initial $240 annual membership. If this isn't, you know, if you don't want to go in this route, then I'll refund your money. And so where I am right now is working with sort of 10 members at a time to provide this more specialized consulting, still providing a little bit of community around sort of a shared Facebook group, and also being able to put them into our database so that I can make those connections as able. The important thing that I've learned from this really, though, is that for these very small businesses, this actual one-on-one consulting that is very tailored to where they are and what they understand and need is a real value. And so, so that's what I'm doing right now. I'm no longer accepting applications on our website, sort of from people out in the universe. But am still working, you know, with referral from trusted partners and things like that. So I would encourage you to continue to send people my way if you think that they're a good fit, and I will add them as I am able. The last piece is just sort of building on, these are still ways that you can work with really me. So, you know, so still sort of word of mouth referrals, helping people understand the trends that are out there, what is happening, and to work on preparing. Again, I'm working now on a consulting basis as well. If you want to have me bring programs into your community, I'm happy to do that under a contract. And then also partnering. And I might give Kara an opportunity to talk. We're partnering with Heart of Ellsworth for an event that is simply helping build awareness in the community of the opportunity and options of entrepreneurship through purchase or acquisition of a business. So I'm going to sort of stop there. I'm happy to take questions and also you know, provide any kind of, I know that was sort of a quick overview, but provide any kind of clarification around that piece.
Great,
and I
thanks.
see
Yeah.
David.
Go ahead, Dave.
Thanks so much for that overview, Martha. And definitely, I completely understand trying to right size the, you know, the platform for the moment. I have two quick questions. One is, I think out in the marketplace, I'm talking to a lot of business owners, especially with kind of some of the talent challenges that we've been having in the state around like acquire hire, and having that be like a real focus of their acquisition strategy. So I'm wondering, kind of that's kind of one question that I have, is just kind of understanding if your work in that space or in kind of the capacity that you would be able to lend there, because I'm finding it to be a little bit more complicated for a lot of these business owners than they think, specifically on acquire hire. And then the other piece is, as we're talking to people, I'm finding that there's a lot of like people who want to be kind of small business entrepreneurs, let's call that, and they're really just spending a lot of time browsing on like biz buy sell, and they don't really know. They might know how to build the pro forma and they might know how to go get the funding, but they don't know what comes next. So can you talk a little bit about like where somebody goes from like buy biz sell to you, and kind of what that looks like?
Yeah, thanks. That's a terrific, those are two terrific questions. So the first is definitely support on the acquire to hire. That is something that I definitely have heard from a lot of business owners, from both those that are sort of large enough to think about changing their structure to an employee ownership structure, like a co-op or something along those lines, as well as that sort of acquire to hire. So yes, I can definitely help in that aspect, in terms of having sort of worksheets and tools that they can use to kind of work through what that looks like, because it is a complicated It is a complicated way to do it, but it's also potentially one of the most satisfying ways to do it. A lot of the work, I think, for the owner is sort of that emotional attachment to their business and being able to really begin to sort of parse out, sort of ownership, governance, and management as sort of three different aspects that they have to figure out what their transition looks like. So that's a really long way around saying, yes, I'm happy to sort of help people with thinking through that piece. I would add one last thing around that. The other thing that I am doing currently, I'm in the first cohort of fellows from the Northeast Transition Initiative, or NETI. And that is an initiative that is obviously Northeastern, a regional initiative. It's 5 different key partners, including the Co-op Development Institute, the Institute of Co-op Advancement, and a bunch of other people that are really focused largely on ownership, employee ownership options. But what they're doing in this fellowship program is really helping educate people and giving tools that can be used to sort of help people all along that exit planning process. So that's another piece that I can bring into that. And a lot of the tools that I have adapted for these very smaller, these smaller businesses are ones that are sort of available within the exit planning world, but they're not right sized for sort of businesses this size. So that's sort of the first piece.
Yeah, I know, just so it's helpful. I think where a lot of the conversation I'm having is people are trying to decide JV versus acquire hire, and I think that like understanding the structural difference there. But when people in this market, and by this market I mean I'll say Maine, are trying to compete nationally and we're and feeling kind of challenged, I think what we're seeing is, hey, if we try and band together, what does that look like? And is it a JV? Is it an acquisition, or is it an acquire hire? So that's where I think just so you have a context of where I'm coming at it from with the question.
Yeah, I think I can help people think that piece through, but obviously I'm not an attorney and I'm not a tax advisor. So, one of the things that I've tried to do is pull together, some professional service folks like that are sort of willing to do a certain amount of advising, with a bunch of caveats that they're not officially giving legal advice and that sort of thing, but helping people understand the different legal and tax implications of the way that they choose to go. The other thing I would say is that I am really focused on that very small business. And so that's really looking at businesses that are $1 million or less in annual revenues, and probably somewhere around 5 to 10 full and part-time employees, a mixture of those. So anyone that's much above that is probably might want to use more like an exit planner and might have more resources for something along those lines. The piece that I would say about Biz by Sell around people thinking, so part of what I'm doing is helping people in terms of potential buyers, is helping them really think about, what do they really want? What are they actually ready for? And so it's almost like getting them ready before they look at Biz by Sell, because for those of you who aren't familiar, Biz by Sell is the largest online business marketplace. It's almost fully pushing buyers through a business broker. It's very hard you cannot search Biz by Sell for a business that does not have a broker. And so you still have to sort of fight your way through the salesperson, frankly. And that's one of the things that's hard for these very small businesses is, and I don't want to run down business brokers, but the incentive for a business broker is very different than my incentive. The incentive for a business broker is to make a transaction. And they do not get paid until that transaction happens, and they get a percentage of that transaction. And so what often happens, you know, and you don't have a business broker that is representing both sides. And so what happens is it's a very transactional, and, you know, transactional negotiated process and experience versus the companies at the size that I'm looking at generally are not, they're not necessarily looking for that same experience that one might have with a business broker. I would also just add my favorite or least favorite statistic is that only 20% of businesses that get listed ever sell. And so by trying to make this front end a little more people friendly and, you know, the helping people think through pieces of the decision that are more than just looking at the pro forma and thinking about the financial aspects of whether this is great or not is part of what I'm trying to do. One last thing that I would add, David, is that as part of the research, sort of the market landscape research that I have done and that Judy, my former co-founder, did, we have a really strong sense of what else is out there. So there are some really interesting, larger, highly scaled versions of sort of what I'm doing. So if you have people who are looking, you know, who have more access to capital and are looking to begin buying multiple businesses that they put, you know, that they put management in and they are just an owner, there are other really great options out there that I'm happy to share if that's something that you run across.
Yeah, I just I think we're probably, I think a lot of our communities are similar where there's a lot of people, especially maybe younger people, that weren't expecting to make money during the COVID kind of housing market, but that made significant money on their primary kind of residence and are now investing in, to use your term, these micro businesses. And so I know of a handful of people in the Mid-Coast region of all people that were not planning to be entrepreneurs that now have bought multiple businesses locally, everything from franchises to laundromats to dry, and they are constantly scrolling on that platform looking. And so I was just trying to figure out, how do I make the connection between them, that, because of course I'm trying to bring that to the main street and help this transition with my main street businesses. And those main street businesses, to your point, are not listed on that platform, but our dry cleaners and our franchises are.
Right.
And so I guess, sorry to be really specific, I'm trying to help them see that you don't just have to buy the Dairy Queen franchise, you can also buy and invest in our local retailers and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say I would love to have those people in my database because, you know, I only have those smaller local businesses. So, you know, I would love to, you know, make that connection and just begin to be able to connect them to other, you know, people out there.
Yeah, there's got to be a term for them. I mean, we'll call them HELOC entrepreneurs. I don't know. There's got to be a term for them.
And I
I know.
will say, just as a reminder to those that, like Martha said, are coming in the middle of the book, one of the reasons I think that Martha's work so relates to every one of you is that in your towns, as Dave just said, you have, you know, the local dry cleaners or convenience store, they're family owned, they're multiple generation. They haven't given any thought to what happens when the next generation doesn't want the business. But yet, you know, there's value in that business for your community, for your main street. And, you know, you don't want it to just close. So I think it's a really important place for us all to be thinking about in your communities. I mean, I can name one. For some reason, Tamara, I'm thinking of Gerard's Pizza. It's a multiple generation business. So anyway, it's really, it's just really meaningful work. So we have time for a couple more questions for Martha, if that sounds okay to you, Martha.
Sure.
Okay.
I just want to add one piece to what you said, and that that as a Mainer, I get very nervous around. I notice now all the time businesses as they're being bought and sold, and there's not a lot that is changing hands locally. The businesses that have a lot of value are being bought by private equity firms that are not here in Maine, whose goal is to strip them down and resell them. And, you know, not to get on a big rant about private equity, but it isn't local. It is not building local wealth. It is building wealth within those private equity firms. And, you know, the more wealth, the more business ownership that stays locally, the more wealth is created locally. And, you know, I think we are in a transition where there is going to be less and less wealth that is able to be created locally if we do not retain a level of local and community-oriented business owners. So I'll get down off that soapbox, but
That's a great point. Ross, were you going to say something?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Any other questions or comments for Martha? And if there aren't any, Cara, do you want to say how you were bringing proprietor to Ellsworth?
Sure. So as part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem work, we were fortunate to be able to hire a program coordinator. That's goal right now is very much so executing all of the community goals that were established during our time with Matt and Sylvie and all of the folks at the main downtown center. One of the goals was to bring proprietor to our community. So we were very fortunate to be able to have Martha work with us on sort of framing up one business that was sort of a local sort of success story in the past couple of years during COVID. We had a children's toy store and community bookstore change hands when the prior owner came to Heart of Ellsworth and said that they really wanted a little bit of help with finding the next owner. We tried to help them, but we were sort of unsuccessful in being able to help. And then I went in to check like a couple of months later to check in with him. He said, "Oh, I posted it up on Facebook, and I'm in talks right now with perhaps the new building and the new business owners. They haven't purchased the building yet." It ended up happening, and we ended up getting a family, a husband and wife who have 4 children who ended up buying the business, who just happened to stumble on it on Facebook. And the female owner of the business is the sister of one of our city councilors currently. So sort of like an all-around wonderful success story. So to that, we wanted to kind of frame up, you know, the concept idea. So you want to own a business, and sort of framing up the concept of buying an existing business, not just starting your own from scratch. Like there are multiple different ways to do that. So we have Martha Cumming, who is going to be talking with Molly Delana, the woman who owns the business and does the day-to-day operations. And then also Jana Richards, our economic development director for the city of Ellsworth, is going to be sort of the 3 of them kind of a panel discussion, I think is the direction that we have going in. And we really tried to make it at a time when people could attend. We really are trying to push that, you know, kids are welcome. It's a family bookstore, so there's lots for them to do. And really just trying to give Martha the opportunity to present. We currently have 3 really prominent, long-time sort of businesses in our community that are for sale. One of them, maybe many of you on this call are familiar with Rooster Brother. It's a really, really scary situation. There's not a lot of a succession plan there. And it's a sort of 30-year tried and true, you know, organizational business in our community that people come from all over the world to come there. And if we were to lose that, or if it were to like really change. So I don't know how we're going to tackle it. The current owners are pretty private, but we've over the past 8 years fostered a really solid relationship with them. And perhaps I can get the business owner to, you know, come to this event. That would be a success just in itself. Does not come out much. So anyway, if there are any questions, what I'll do is once our draft of our poster is done, which next week it should be done, I'll send it out to everybody so you can just sort of see. And Martha, I just wanted to ask, are you, I mean, not to put you on the spot, but is this something that you're willing to do in other communities, or are you still sort of taking it slow?
I am willing to do it in other communities, mostly because the experience that I've had so far is that everyone is stretched so thin. It sort of takes a little while to get it planned and get going. So right now, the next one will probably be in Skowhegan. And probably we're going to flip it and do the other side and have the event at a business that is preparing to sell. And so, yeah, so I'm working with Patrick and with that business to do that probably in early summer.
That's great. Really great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Martha, we could talk and pick your brain all day because you are a wealth of knowledge. And you are welcome to stay to talk about Jane's Walk, which, you know, is our fabulous international festival that comes to Maine first weekend in May every year. But I also want to acknowledge that you might like to head on your way.
I am going to head on my way, but really appreciate the time and happy to, you know, share any of the resources, David, particularly, you know, with some of your businesses that might be a little bit larger that might benefit from some of the bigger sort of national resources.
And
So,
we'll definitely in our follow-up notes from today's meeting, as we will put in Martha's contact information as well.
sounds good. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, Martha.
All right. Bye.
See ya. Okay. Jane's Walk. Tara Kelly. Carrie Tyson.
May I have co-hosting
Yes, I'm
capabilities?
gonna do that. I don't know why it doesn't do it automatically. There you go. Last year, the Maine Downtown Center, we are a partner in this with Maine Preservation, Portland Downtown, Greater Portland Landmarks, Friends of Congress Square Park. We had 16 walks amongst our network, which was wonderful. Some communities like Westbrook, I think, had what, 4 or something? 4, yeah. And we want to beat the number 16 again. I mean, not again. We want to beat it this year. I'll turn it over to Tara and Carrie. Ask questions. Think about hosting one. It's not a big lift, and it's so wonderful.
Thanks. And yeah, we want to beat the 16 number. We want to beat the 39 number from last year. So with a bunch of new faces, once again, I'm Tara Kelly, Executive Director of Maine Preservation. And I'm going to run through some slides and then we'll open it up to questions and conversation. And I want to hear from some of our veterans here who have hosted walks in their communities before. I know we've also had 2 in Ellsworth last year. We've had Gardner, we've had Hollowell, we've had Lisbon, we've had Biddeford. So there's a lot of good representation. But as Anne said, we want to keep pushing to make it bigger and better every single year. So let me start with just the basics for those of you who don't know. Jane's Walk. Many of you may be aware, and maybe some of you are not, that Jane Jacobs was an urban activist and writer who lived from 1916 to 2006 and is best known for galvanizing her neighbors to stop Robert Moses from building a expressway through her neighborhood of Greenwich Village. She was in her writings subsequent to that, she talked about the power of individuals to influence the places that they live and work. And today her principles represent the participatory planning practices and approaches that have been embraced in communities around the world. So as a result, following her death, the Jane's Walk Festival was created to honor her legacy. It takes place in 200 places around the world. It's the first weekend in May every year, and this year it coincides with her actual birthday, which is May 4th. It is also, what do you call it, Kara? We are Star Wars fans. May the 4th be with you. Does that have a name?
Just that. I mean, it needs no other.
Okay. Anyway, so the first year we had Jane's Walk in Maine was in 2022. These are all of the walks we had. So we'll see some of our downtowns and main streets there. Westbrook, Biddeford. Let's see who else. Hollowell has been with us since the beginning. Gardner. Ellsworth again, Stonington. So a lot of good energy in the first year. We had more than 300 participants in 11 cities and towns, more than 20 walks. And these topics covered history, community visioning, the natural environment, and more. And last year, we practically doubled. So we had more than 500 participants. That's an estimate. It may have been, far exceeded that, but it's hard to guess. In 26 cities and towns and nearly 40 walks. And topics included stormwater mitigation, adaptive reuse, personal history, foraging, and more. And so just to walk through a few photos, here's Stonington. This was Museum in the Streets of Stonington. This is Portland. I think this was following along for Portland's ghost sign. This is Westbrook, I believe. This one was on the stormwater mitigation and engineering design. And here is Ellsworth. So the most important thing to know about Jane's Walk is that literally anyone can lead a walk. We are all experts in our own experience of our communities and have plenty to share. This is not a lecture, it's a walking conversation. It's intended to be interactive and dynamic. It's not necessarily intended to be your straightforward guided tour. So when thinking about a topic, you might want to think about something that could be interesting, sort of off the beaten path for your community, something that, pointing out things that folks might not normally notice or see. And a great way to make it more interesting is to think about something participatory or experiential, like a scavenger hunt, that can really get people engaged in whatever it is that you've chosen. But literally any topic is up for grabs. So what you want to do is pick a precise meeting place that's easily accessible. You'll think about the story that you want to tell to help map out the walk sequence of spots. We recommend using Google Maps to plot your route and factor in time between stops. A Jane's Walk can also be stationary. You can stay in one place. So maybe some of this might not even be relevant to your walk. But you want to think about practicing your route beforehand if you are going from spot to spot, identifying good places to gather the group close to features of the streetscape or landmarks that you want to point out. We recommend having a friend join you as you practice your route to offer feedback. You want to consider accessibility. Everyone experiences space differently, and you want to think broadly and empathetically about how others might feel along your route. The walk submission form includes a space to describe accessibility. And so also it's important to be mindful of areas that are not accessible to the public, and so therefore to seek permission to enter any private property. You do not have to lead your walk alone, and in fact, we really encourage having multiple perspectives. Oftentimes when walks are led by more than one person, it can create a more dynamic, comfortable, and fun and conversational experience. It also takes the burden off of you. Some folks have led walks that are a little more curatorial, where there's a different person at each spot, and really you're just kind of leading them from one place to the next. We strongly recommend enlisting a volunteer who can attend to logistics on your walk. Volunteers can manage the crowd, making sure folks stay together, kind of hustling up the stragglers. They can help with documenting your walk, so we definitely want to see lots of good photos of what's happening on the day. And they can also help to answer questions. So we really do recommend having another person with you. Your walk can also be enhanced by having historic photos to show a then and now, or maybe it's just a simple map showing the stops you plan to make. It could be fun and not just fun, but beneficial to end at a local business, maybe a coffee shop or a brewery. to continue the conversation after the walk. On the day, when it comes to sort of delivering your walk, you definitely want to start by introducing yourself. Tell a little bit about who Jane Jacobs was, what this festival is all about. And something to note that's different from prior years is that this year we have a grant from SAPI North America Ideas That Matter, which is interested in engaging the community in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There's a link to that on our website. And you'll be asked within the submission form to select up to 3 of the sustainable goals that your walk might address. So you might want to bring that up at the beginning and say that your walk maybe has a reference to improving equality, for example. You might ask participants who've arrived where they're joining you from. I think you'd be surprised to find that some may be local and some may be coming from great distances. You could ask how they heard about your walk and what made them interested in participating. Because again, that's an opportunity to sort of create community within this group for the time that you're spending together. You'll want to make sure that you're not walking and talking at the same time. It can be difficult for folks to hear you. Remember to speak loudly and gather your group in quiet spots or stand on an elevated plane. All walk leaders this year, thanks to SAPI, will receive a Jane's Walk t-shirt. And also the first 50 walk leaders will receive a walk leader packet that includes a pennant, some stickers, a branded pencil and folio. So we've got some extra swag this year, so be sure to sign up. And then you'll be able to have those things on hand so that people can find you and you can burnish your branded items. As you progress on your walk, make sure that you remain open to dialogue. For example, you could ask the crowd if anyone remembers a certain building's previous use or if they could spot a specific architectural detail. Don't be afraid to also let somebody within the group answer a question if you don't know the answer, because again, it's intended to be a dynamic and conversational experience. And, like I said before, be sure to capture the fun. You saw some of the photos from last year. Some of those were taken by walk leaders and attendees, and others were captured by professional photographers. We do have a budget for some photographers to join on walks. So actually the communities that have more than one walk, I think, are going to be more likely to have a professional photographer on hand. So if that's incentive for you and your communities to try to garner more than one walk, please do, and we'll try and send a photographer your way. But at any rate, we'd love to see photos of the day, videos, and we will share a Dropbox link for walk leaders so that you can share those with us and we can promote. And speaking of promotion, we will do our best to promote the festival. As I mentioned, we have a substantial grant from SAPI, so we'll be doing radio ads. We already have some print ads out. We'll be doing digital promotion, a lot of ads on social media and Google. But the part of the beauty of this festival is all of us kind of promoting each other so that our audiences find and learn about all the important work that's happening across the state. So please do also think about the ways that you could promote your walk in the festival. We have a Jane's Walk Facebook page. You could put out a press release to your local news outlet. We'll do one for the festival wide, but you have better relationships locally. Send things out through your regular newsletters, also personally if you want to connect with your network. We also have a template for a flyer. There will be templates also for social media for walk leaders to use, but those printed flyers can go in places like coffee shops, libraries, schools. So that is, where did we go? That is it for my formal presentation, and I am happy to answer all of your questions. And Carrie also is a very experienced Jane's Walk leader and participant. So happy to kind of turn it over to you for anything and probably all the things that I've missed in explaining Jane's Walk.
That's great. Yeah, Carrie, please feel free to chime in.
Yeah, first of all, thank you all for your interest in everything you do in your community. I deeply appreciate it. Also, thanks to Tara, who's really, very lucky to have her in this role. She did this for a long time in New York City, and so is very experienced in it and has brought that passion here to her work in Maine and really has made a difference. I love Jane's Walk. It is just a lot of fun. It's a great opportunity to get folks out in your community to have a walking conversation, to have a discussion. I think that's really what I want to reinforce. A lot of times it doesn't take a ton of preparation. Don't let that scare you, because it is just that. It is a conversation. To me, some of the best Jane's Walks I've been on are about places where you want to see things happen, or where there's opportunity, or where things aren't going right that you want to make better. Those are to me, some of the best. Now, I've also been on some incredible ones, Ghost Science, Queer History of Portland, a lot of really fun stuff, but they can also be very, very quirky and obscure and odd. And to me, that's even better. One happened here in Portland 2 years ago that was about gargoyles, and grotesques. If I can speak, it's still very early. And it's just walking around looking at interesting architectural factors. So it can be anything. I did one on the surface parking lots of downtown Portland. I mean, pretty obscure, random stuff, but I had 20 people or whatever, and that's a good number. Don't let that number intimidate you. 8, 10, 12 people is a great conversation. It doesn't have to be 50 folks or whatever. Small groups make things happen. So happy to answer questions. That's just sort of what I wanted to bring to it from that, both that level, both different levels, the planning and the execution.
Yeah, and Westbrook did one on stormwater, I think last year and the year before. Like, they have a civil engineer who lives in the community, and it's wildly attended really well.
I went to that one. It was great.
Yeah. So random. Tara.
I also go ahead. I mean, I was just going to give you guys, since you're our special partners here, a little preview of what else is different this year. You may have noticed that we have a new website, and this is what it's going to look like when we have our walks. They will be on a map that then can be filtered by keyword, by team. I don't know if the pop-ups work yet, because this is just like a mock-up. By county, it'll zoom in and focus in. And this is also kind of what the tiles of the walks will look like. That also, again, will get filtered if you put in those search items. But it's a much more dynamic and exciting website than we had before, which was really just us wrestling Squarespace to do what we needed it to do and almost breaking our website. This year we have something that is custom designed for Jane's Walk. There's Cara. So it's going to be really fun to send people to this, to be able to, and then we've got Delilah, to be able to see all of the different activities happening across the state. So I just wanted to share that with you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, and Karen did say in the chat before she transitioned to her phone, just that, where is it?
She said, do it.
Do it. I know, I can't find it now.
It's backwards.
And Ross said, we're hoping to do a Jane's Walk that's focused on cemetery tours with historical stories, which is great in Lisbon.
I was just to quickly add, actually, it's funny. If we're planning something different, but if we did a stormwater one, it would certainly be the most popular. Stormwater is like the only. If you go
issue.
If you go to like a restaurant or like a bar in Rockland right now, conversations about stormwater. I just wanted to flag and say how glad I am that you're putting in the SDGs piece. I think as an organization, we've been trying to talk more and more about the role that we're playing in Goal 11, and so I think that's wonderful. and a great opportunity for us. And even just on that website, if we have an ability to also be tagging the SDG that we're focused on, that might just be another way of kind of bringing that home. But it's just a great flag for all of us as we talk about this and go after grants and all that. That just like highlighting which SDG we're focused on with that initiative will go a long way. And all of our work touches goal 11 in such a deep way.
That's great. And Tamara says she's hoping in Gardner to focus the walk on the Common, one of our public parks, because it's the 200th anniversary of it being gifted to the city of Gardner, which is pretty incredible. And then you have the fountain. It's an amazing park. Very cool. So yeah.
I don't know if you could, I apologize for any background noise. I'm driving up to Waterville, but I just wanted to know, we're also going to do the waterfront park, I believe, and it's going to be working with other people, the Arts and Culture Committee, and the we have a conservation group that's done a lot of work on the waterfront park in Hollowell, you know, where all those colorful chairs are. So that's going to be going on. And also, I'm thinking that we did the revitalization roadmap a few years ago, and that came up with several suggestions. And in my head, I'm going like, that would probably be a great second one to go around to all the different places that were mentioned in that for improvement in Hollowell. And I noticed when I looked on the website that James Walk, it was included like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Is that a change? I mean, you know, is that true? Can we, I know usually we do it on Saturday, but can we stretch it to Sunday or to Friday night?
I'm not sure where you saw that. In other places, they do it on different days. At this point, because of limitations in staffing and resources, we need to have it on one day.
Okay, so I was just wondering if that, but could we do it at different times? Like have two walks, but have them at different times?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, I just want to say, I encourage, I think that one of the great ways that this festival can work is that if there's more than one walk happening in a given location, you are more likely to have more people show up because they can go to do one thing from the next. So if there's one at 11 o'clock that you can go to, and then somebody's going to stop and have lunch somewhere, and then there's another one that's at 2 o'clock or 1:30 or something, like you can really kind of take advantage of that captive audience who's already going to be there for the other one, and they decide to stay for the whole day. So I really encourage and recommend, and not just one or two, but Anne mentioned Westbrook had 4. Portland has always had a good concentration, and it just boosts that energy and excitement about the day. And that's kind of how it becomes this like much bigger festival of like making all these places destinations, and really leads to, for example, I always go someplace far for this to try something new, but we're marketing this festival statewide and across the Northeast. And so, people, have a reason to go plan and map out their full day somewhere. They're going to do it. And when I ran this in New York, there was actually, it was 3 days long, with more than 300 walks across the city. And there was a couple who would fly in from Hawaii every year because they could just go and see all this kind of behind the scenes insider culture and activity. It wasn't like going to Times Square and getting a walking tour from some, Big Apple, whatever. It's like going somewhere and hearing directly from like real people who live in the city, talking about things they care about in, the farthest corners and reaches you would never think of. And so, that's an opportunity here is yes, absolutely bringing together your local community to care about a particular issue that you have as a Main Street director. But there is also this chance where, somebody from Vermont or New Hampshire, Massachusetts, or Canada is going to be like, I want to come and spend an entire day in this place doing something for free and learning about it from locals.
Yeah. That we found.
Sorry, Karen, we are at time and I want to I'm a stickler and we're late. So I just want to say, I'm going to stay on for people who have additional questions or things they want to talk about. Delilah said Heart of Biddeford and Saco Main Street are hosting a Black History Tour, which is being put together by 5 or 6 community and school groups. And Karen also alluded to the fact that she's partnering with others to get the tour done in Hallowell. And it's a great way to do it. The Main Streets and affiliates don't have to pick up everything to do. You can partner with another organization to do it. So thank you, Tara and Carrie. I'm going to stay on. I'm going to turn off the recording and just let me know if you have other questions or things you want to discuss. And thank you so much for coming to Friday Optional Zoom.